cameras on the facilities or what, I don't know, but it's definitely.
I'll say they're not immune to the old unfunded mandate, just like we are.
Yeah.
When we talk about groundwater conservation fee, a lot of that security is federally mandated or state mandated, water icing security. I mean, it sounds like I'm trying to defend them. I think they do a good job.
You know, I'm sure that they're as good as any of the others. But anytime you have a non-regulated, I mean, and nobody's watching over them. They can spend whatever they want and pass it on. And nobody gets to say, no, you can't do
Well, the
that.
member cities,
Every time I put them on, I'm like-
vote on their budget.
Well, I understand that, but has the member cities ever turned their budget down in the history of God?
I'll be the host of that.
Yeah.
I would simply say, if there, obviously, I know Mr. Senator probably be difficult if you get off work, but if there's someone who would like to accompany Janina and Jackie to the budget meeting, you're more than welcome, it's an open meeting, and so,
As well as they welcome our questions. We've sent them, we've called them before, we've sent them pages of emails before, just asking about the details. What are we seeing here? What are the changes from this to this and that kind of thing? We've done that as well. So if you want to do that.
if you win, they probably wouldn't let Janina and Jackie back again.
Well, see, you guys appreciate that.
But I would go, but y'all certainly are welcome, so, Miss Janina, how much, I don't know you're probably on like slide.
That's
10.
Fund 1 of 25.
But there's the, do you think we could get, it's 8:30, what's the possibility that we could stay like 30 more minutes? Are you all good at 30 more minutes?
I thought I'd be here for 10.
So let's go about 30 more minutes.
that's fine.
And wherever we are, we will stop and we'll pick it up Saturday morning with this first, and then we'll go back, recap, and then we have some other presentations that are not really budget related, some follow up on what we talked about. And then just some other general topics we'll talk about.
Okay, so let's get into the general fund. Let's do their walkthrough. Current year 2016 operating revenues, $37.3 million. Walk forward through property taxes based on the July 25th numbers, as well as that half % reduction in property tax rate. That's property taxes of $1 million increase. The sales taxes, $1.2 million increase, and that's based on a 5% growth factor over the current year. Franchise fees, $124,000 increase due to growth of the city as well as the inflationary rate adjustments from the other utilities. Licenses and permits, we've got that dropping just a little bit, $62,000 there. Obviously, we know that we're not going to continue to have the development of the new permits that we're used to, so we're cutting that back a little bit. Fines and fees, reduction a little bit, $50,000, and that's basically that's based on our trending of the municipal court. Is running a little bit lower the last couple of years. Transfers, $70,000. Car rental transfer as well as water and wastewater. That's what you'll see that increase there, $70,000. Other, $113,000. This is going to be various things, tower lease, grants, interest, all that kind of stuff is kind of lumped into that $113,000 increase. If it's an increase, it's still not the interest income. It's just not happening. Property tax operating revenues then for 2017 is $39.7 million. That's a 6% increase from the current year. And we'll talk about the 2017 use of reserves, $2,099,305. I'll break that down for you in a few slides from now, talking about what's rollover and what's new. And then Mr. Barker will tell you the new stuff in a little bit.
The property taxes and sales taxes that go with PIN and TERS on Lake Park, that's included in the revenues here and then taken out of the expense below.
No, it's actually taken out of these numbers, of the revenue side.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Overall, the $39.7 million in revenues comes from, you'll say 64% right there, lumped up in the two areas of property taxes and sales taxes. Sales taxes are projected to be 33% of the budget, and property taxes 31% of the revenue budget. We love that sales tax being up there. That's good news, but always remember that's a little more volatile of the revenue source. It fluctuates a little bit more with the economy as well as on an annual basis. That property taxes are a little more slow to react. Fines and fees, that makes up 12% of the budget. Then that's municipal court mainly, fines and other additional areas, but that's a big part of that. Franchise fees is 12%. Again, that's the right-of-way usage and ability for utilities to operate within our city. Transfers 7%, primarily the car rental fund. Is our portion there. Excuse me. Permits, they provide 2% of the general fund budget. Miscellaneous revenues, that's another 3%. That's, again, those tower leases, veteran contributions, grant funds. Let's talk about the expense side. Our current 2016 operating expenses, $37.2 million. Let's talk about our changes there. We're seeing an increase of $1.2 million for salary package and insurance. So that's the meat and potatoes there. Rebates and incentives, Ms. Gagel talked about earlier, with those increased revenues. We also have contractual arrangements with other entities that we've got to send, and so that's an increase of $271,000 for next year.
What's an example of one that says, do you name one?
Well, we've got, the DFW airport, any revenue generated from DFW airport, we have to send 2/3 of that to Dallas and Fort Worth if it's over our original base
Gotcha.
the year. And then we would also have, our 380 agreements, and that's gonna primarily be your, US Concrete. We have a rebate agreement with them, and then we have a few other small ones, so. And so again, that revenue's coming in, but you have the expenditure that you have to rebate the money. Shops at Vineyard Village, they have a rebate agreement.
Yeah, they talked about that, though.
It's getting closer.
This may be the last year.
Which one?
The shops are gonna be really.
It's not done yet, it's gonna.
Pretty close.
I think we have a couple.
Yeah.
And it pays off, it's based on a calendar. year,
Right.
too, so it will.
Excuse me, $200,000 there for professional and technical. I'll tell you our biggest increases, it's a variety of different things, but we're seeing the legal expenses per hour as well as usage go up there, legal fees, janitorial, we scheduled to talk about that. Translation services, she also discussed that. Transportation, I believe that you're going to address more on Saturday. And that kind of, those are the professional technical expenses there. Utilities and fees, you'll see the $8,200. We expect our water bills to go up for parks because we expect the city council, it's been recommended that the city council consider an increase in water. Maintenance and supplies up $28,000, just, that's a variety. I can't even, I can't go down to one particular item, it's just so many different departments and everything. Equipment replacement, you'll see that that's gone up $70,000 for next year. The schedule explained that, going from 55% to 100% depreciation expense on that. The street maintenance, she also covered earlier, but again, reminder, it's an increase of $50,000 for the street maintenance and overlays as a whole, as well as we're transferring $175,000 of that from one-time expenses up to these baseline expenses. So instead of seeing it down there at the bottom of the total capital expenses, you're seeing it in the operational. And then other $27,000, and that's going to be training, travel, just general expenses, just writing things that you see throughout the budgets. Proposed supplemental, this fund actually has some proposed supplemental that has been recommended at $410,000. That covers the 3 new firefighters, the public works field tech, and half of that part-time person is going full-time, because the other portion's in the service center fund, as well as the part-time person for human resources. So that's what's included there in that $410,000 that you see.
Where is the additional? There's 3 new additional added. One last year, one this year, and one next year. Where is that salary?
This year is in CCPD.
CCPD.
And the other one that's not been funded yet is in Seized Assets Fund. You can still see it coming out of Seized Assets.
Will we see the decrease in our utility costs on the phones? Are we going to do that this year's budget?
Remember, there's a decrease, but we have to pay for the equipment over a 3-year period, so you won't see the decrease yet,
Year 4?
because we're using the savings to pay for the equipment. So not till year 4.
Okay.
So this gets your 2017 proposed operating expenses at $39.7 million, and that's an increase of 4.55% from the current year. And then outside of operating, we're talking about capital expenses. Again, out of that $2,099,000 that I showed you on the previous screen, use of reserves, capital carryover from the previous year, from actually this current year. Items that won't be totally done on September 30th, we expect to roll over $875,000 of that. And then proposed capital for next year is $1,223,000. And Mr. Barker will be discussing that possibly later, if not Saturday morning, and that's all in your tab 5. So let's break down those expenses at $39.7 million by department to start with. As you would expect, 59% is for public safety. 34% of the expenses go to police, 25% goes to fire. From there, you'll see our third largest one, again, is non-departmental, like it was in the water and wastewater fund. This is legal fees, utilities, TRE expenses, net expenses, HEB transportation, all that is in here in the non-departmental. And then from there, you can see what are the next ones, the 6%ers, that's administrative services, parks and community services, public works. From there, it goes down to 4% for finance, and city administration is 3%.
It's really amazing to think about how much public works can get done for 6% of the budget. It's
And this is the streets portion, because of course, it's on the water and
the
wastewater
water
side.
side, yeah.
But this is streets, and partial engineering, and animal control. I knew there was a third one. That's it.
Does the Tarrant County Streets though help office? Do we have any piece to show the Tarrant County full lot? What biggest things they pavement?
Well, we actually
Oh.
didn't.
Yeah, we actually stopped using that because we found it cheaper.
In the past, what happened is we paid for the material, and they would provide some labor. And actually, we've gone away from that because we were able to find that we could get it done actually cheaper using like, local vendors like Reynolds and so forth. And so, there may still be projects out, there was a, county bond package a few years back where we got some benefit and they did ash lanes. I don't want to suggest that there's never been help, but as a general rule, there's not any help coming next year. It has to be through a bond program or something where the county has done something in our city.
So let's look at this $39.7 million and then another one by type of expense. Remember what I mentioned earlier, the water and wastewater fund, you saw 45% going to TRA and only 20% going to personnel. That's because we're providing a commodity basically there. Here, general fund is based around services, all the services that we provide. So personnel is 75% of this expense of budget. You'll see grouped in the other areas, rebates and supplies and maintenance are both 6%. Down from there, professional services 5%, utilities and others 3%, and annual capital is 2% there. Excuse me?
I was looking for that slide.
Oh.
Where is it?
Page 20 is as close as we can get to that. I don't think it really helps you out that much.
Page 20?
Page 20.
No, it's not the same.
Yeah, it's very different.
Right.
Because we don't have one that actually shows personnel operating capital.
In the book, you only have it by division and for presentation, we included, we can get your copy of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not there.
So, y'all can feel free to make a copy and distribute that to us Saturday.
That is slide number 3. All right, there's not a whole lot you can do when it comes to sales tax beyond what you're already doing, encouraging economic development efforts in the community. So I gotta move to our second largest revenue source for the general fund, and that would be the property taxes. So let's talk a little bit about the 2017, our assessed values are a historic high of $3.55 billion, which is an increase of 12.7%. I think we talked about that quite a bit earlier, and you probably understand clearly where that came from. And here's David Allen's project, where it came from. You'll see that the red is any kind of decreased value properties. Yellow is the flat rates, flat values, excuse me. And the green is the increase in values. So you'll see that most of the city increased this past year, the green ones.
The yellow is almost all vacant fields.
It's interesting, you can see the red, that's the apartment, look down here, just below
Yeah.
183, the red, that's the apartment complexes that are gone.
Yeah.
So you can, it's very interesting to see the red that pops out there, but, yeah, I mean, pretty much if you look at the same slide last year, the entire slide was yellow with a couple dots of red.
So of course, to those assessed valuations, we apply a tax rate. Tax rate history, 1995, 61.6 cents. That's still a record high for the city of Euless.
So we're in Hearst territory.
There you go. For the last 21 years, we've either dropped or remained flat for the tax rate. And so for a 22nd year, the recommendation is to drop that ½ cent for a rate of 46.25 cents per $100 valuation.
Just what it would be the effective tax rate.
44 is on page,
Page
it's in there.
19. Page 19, it shows the effective tax rate that in the second column, the first column is like the current year. And so the second column, total tax rate effective is 0.433988. And the rollback rate, 0.466172.
How many effective tax rate?
It's a theoretical calculation of what rate you would need to adopt to generate the same revenue as the year before.
And what is the rollback? What's the whole idea of the rollback?
The
We talk
rollback
about
is what
it
you've
a lot.
heard so much about lately, and it's a state mandated cap that says you cannot generate more than 8% for,
You can,
well,
but you have to get letter approval.
I didn't finish my
Oh,
sentence.
sorry.
You can put a comma other places.
What Gary used to say, I paused. He would tell me to finish his sentence, and he would just say, I'll just
Right
pause.
after, right after he put his eyes at you.
It is a state mandated cap.
Lock in the eyes.
You cannot go above it. And you can go above it, but if you do, then your citizens have a right to petition for an election to basically roll back the rate. That does the name rollback rate. And so I will tell you that in most years, we've not come anywhere near a rollback rate. Most cities will not go above rollback because really the reality of it is by the time you go to the election and you had all that done, I don't even, it's not
The
even
over.
practical.
Yeah.
Have half your year over. So, I mean, just most cities don't do it. Bedford did that at one point. They did have a rollback rate. It's, in my opinion, it's just not something that is a good thing to do ever. There's a lot of discussion right now that the state should lower that rate, and that may very well happen next year from 8% to 5% or 4% or something less. So in that regard, they may very well cap how much revenue that a city can accept from property tax from year to year. And certainly, I mean.
I bet they don't cap what the state can get.
I would just say to you that from a standpoint, that absolutely no one ever is going to want to pay more tax. And so that's good for the taxpayer from the standpoint they don't have to pay more tax. From a standpoint of having a budget, if you happen to need to add a fire station and 9 firemen and the costs associated with that, you could never do that and stay under rollback. It would just be impossible. And so I think there will absolutely be limitations in the future on how, if that is at 3 or 4%, I suspect we will all find a way to stay under it, but you will, or you really will be limited in if you are a growing city and you need a lot of new police officers, a lot of new firemen, then you could possibly do it, but you're going to absolutely have to have the complete support of your community, because if people just prefer not to pay the tax, an increased tax, then you're going to have less money that you can recover.
The year Bedford did it, they lost 3 council members.
I mean, it's just not something that, and we typically not even, our typical land increases, if you look back year over year, have been very small, and you can see that when we took the effective, the reverse is everybody always wants to go to effective when values are rising. Nobody wants to go to effective when values are declining. And what you can do when values are declining is you can raise your tax rate
Which
and
is
say
what all
you're
our
not
neighbors
raising
did,
your
and we
taxes.
didn't do.
And you can go to 60-cent tax rate and say, I did not raise your tax because values decline. But if you don't go up during the bad times, then you are stuck down there, and that's your new threshold. And that's one of the arguments that we've always said to folks is that if we said back in 2010, 11, that was the right thing to do, was to not take our tax rate up, did not take our tax rate up, but then when values do increase, and you're maintaining, everybody likes the maintaining when values are going down, but you don't necessarily like the maintaining when values are going up, and in my mind, those go hand in hand, and again, I think we demonstrated here at the beginning of the budget that we did not go out and add a lot of frivolous expenses. We have tried to put the money into making us stable for the future, and that particularly plays into the fact that we may be legislatively capped and mandated at what we can raise in future years.
And we really need to look at getting all this done before we're fully built out. Once we're fully built out, then the rollback will not be an issue because you won't be needed to add
You
all
will
the.
have very little.
You'll be maintaining, and that's really about it.
And every year, Harry, we've had to advertise that we're raising your taxes.
Even though as you can see, we have.
And the tax rate has either remained stable or gone down, but we're still advertising.
And in most of those years, I would tell you, people's home values were remaining unchanged, and they were not paying any more tax. In this particular year, there is no doubt, most of our citizens have seen an increase in their value, and there is no doubt most of them will pay more in tax because of that increase in value. I would also tell you that individually, if they look at those values and those values are in line with what they believe their home is worth, then that is a fair appraisal of that value. If it's not, then they absolutely should protest it. But
But most people don't look at the fact that most of what they pay is school tax.
Yeah.
That
She has a
is
slide
a
coming up
very
here.
small portion of that number.
Yeah.
She has a slide coming up here that I still say, when you look at the value of the services, it's a good value. And here, I think it's coming up like next, or very, very close to the average, what an average taxpayer will pay.
Yeah,
That's a great
So if
slide.
you'll go, if you'll move to that, maybe it's the next slide, or maybe it's the one after this. Go ahead and show them that, one, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and go back and go through your slides, we'll get here in just a second.
Is that enough of an awkward pause on the rest?
Go ahead.
Just,
Now she's being smart.
Obviously, reviews have either already been done or aren't been done quite a while.
of course, we.
That applause you did. That applause you did.
So when you do a tax rate, just to remind you, you do it in two components. The interest and sinking component, as we discussed earlier, that's the rate sufficient to pay the outstanding debt. And it will, if you go with the recommended rate, it will decrease slightly to 9.94 cents. And that's about 21.5% of the total tax rate. Then the no portion, as recommended, would decrease slightly as well to 36.31 cents per $100 valuation. And that's 78.5% of the total tax rate. Now this slide, this is the one that we had to help Ms. Fell off the ground last year when I actually said that we reduced in property the average home value from 151,000 to 150,000.
This year I'm happy.
She lost it. It was unbelievable with our growth and with the growth of the quality and expense of the homes was obviously just not what we expected. So this year's increase of $184,915 for our average home value, you'll see that over the last 10 years has increased 35%.
Maybe that's it.
Oh,
Keep going.
okay. So tax rate impact, if you had a $100,000 home, that is your homestead, you get a 20% reduction for our homestead exemption. So that's an adjusted taxable value of $80,000. That would mean for this upcoming year, if you went with the recommended rate of 46.25 cents per $100 valuation, that'd be $370 annually. That's $4 less than what you paid this year if your house this year was also worth $100,000 and you had homestead exemption. So that's a monthly tax burden of $30.83. The average home value, if you apply that same rate, that'd be to that $184,000 home. The annual taxes is $684.19, or $57.02 per month. And to me, that's less than half of my cable bill every month.
So that's where I think we get to, and I understand that overall in the state, people feel like the taxes are too high. But the city taxes on an average home here are $684 a year. And so from our perspective, you can call your police department 911 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and police officers will respond. You can call 911 and a fire department with multiple firemen and multiple fire trucks and ambulances will show up at your house 24/7.
Stick truck.
It was the stick ladders, yeah.
And that maintains the streets throughout the entire city, and it provides for, you know, obviously we have some EDC funding that helps, but it provides for our basic library and park services. And as Nina said, that's 50,
Well, but now, just to be devil's advocate here, because I know I've heard Gary use the same thing for years and years and years. In reality, that gives you 31% of all those things,
if you go get a
because
speeding
your property
ticket,
tax gets you 31% of your total.
absolutely, that's what you're paying as a, from a property tax standpoint. Certainly, we're getting sales tax. We've done many, many things to try to get the sales tax so that you don't have to get more from the property tax. If you get a speeding ticket in the city, the part that the state doesn't pay, there's some part of that that's going obviously to help to support the municipal court system and the clerks that do that. And so there are other revenue sources, I'm not saying that, but from a property tax standpoint, from that bill of $684, and again, I mean.
Customer standpoint, I mean, that's the customer.
From my standpoint, I know when I paid AT&T for internet, or internet alone is that much, you know, let alone your wireless bill or your cable bill, or, you know, so I understand the aversion to paying more taxes. But that's what you are paying us in taxes. if you
Well,
don't
yeah,
have
and I think
taxes.
the main issue is nobody looks at their tax bill and breaks it down. They look at, I'm paying $3 because $2.05 of it is the school system. And then you've got the other little entities that are.
Absolutely correct. I mean, when you get your tax bill, you do not look and say, this is the city of Euless portion. You get your tax bill and you have Euless and Tarrant County and.
Most people look at that and they think, that's my city tax bill.
And so that is a very large number, there's no doubt about it. And until and unless the state of Texas decides that there's a better way to fund the schools and other things in the state, then, you know, I don't know if there will be a big change in that. But that is just at least the portion that the city of Euless is collecting from the taxpayer. And we did that in $100,000 increments, because if you have a $300,000 home, then you can do the math very quickly and easily there to see what it would be. And in the book on 8-8, we've got comparisons to the prior year.
I think 8-7 is a real good comparison to where I see.
Yeah, and she's got that slide coming up here, I think, Jane, the next slide is your city comparison slide. Again, the same as we do with water, we compare tax rates.
Yeah. And homestead exemptions.
Right. That was telling.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, it is, and if you, we always look at this slide when we, anytime we look at it, we look at Bedford and Colleyville because they don't offer a homestead. If you were to consider, you know, reevaluate their rate, if they did, Bedford would actually be at 61.9 cents and Colleyville would be at 44.5 cents. But that key is probably that fifth column. You'll see it starts with tax with homestead exemption on $184,915 home. You'll see that's our average home in every one of the cities, what they would pay. And so it's kind of hard to see from there. In fact, it's kind of hard to see them. And that's on page 8-7.
Yeah.
You'll see that the average of all the cities is $784, and Euless's proposed is $684.
So if you look down that list, the column she's talking about, tax with homestead exemption on a $184,000 home, that is an apple-to-apple conversion. That is taking $184,915 home and calculating the tax bill for each of those cities. And so in Bedford, who has a tax rate of 49 cents, you would actually pay $915 because they have no homestead exemption. In Hearst, you'd pay $903, Northridge and Hills $959, Grapevine $486. Absolutely, Grapevine has a lower tax rate. They get $54 million from sales tax.
Exactly.
Now, okay, if we had their sales tax, we wouldn't need property tax at all.
And
It
Colleyville,
would cover our entire budget.
Colleyville is $658, and in Euless is $684. So that is an apples-to-apples comparison of exactly what each city's bill would be on that value.
And granted, this is their